Have you ever wondered if you handle the situation properly? I know I have. Well, you're welcome to SIP. Here, we say it properly. And we're looking forward to having you on each episode as we learn together how to say it properly. I am MABEL FOLUKE IRUKERA. See you then. Hello, you're welcome to Say It Properly. My name is MABEL FOLUKE IRUKERA and I'm your host today. I look forward to sharing vital information with you about how to say things properly to our children and within the family setting. By the way, have you subscribed to Byronbee TV? That's our channel. If you haven't, please do so before the end of this program, and it will enable you to watch more of our programs and our content, even from Say It Properly. Today we're going to be talking about a vice. And what's that vice? Stealing. Stealing is a vice in any culture. And I have a little story to share with you in order to start this point. Okay, so let's go on this journey together. Say, what are these? Asked Mrs. O as she brought out the AirPods from the pocket of her son's trousers. Ogene hesitated for a moment and then quickly said, "Oh, Mom, they're for a friend in school." "Oh, really? Can I have them back? I'll give it to him when I get to school on Monday." That answer did not sit right with Mrs. O, and so she called the class teacher later that day. Apparently, the AirPods did belong to a classmate, but they had been declared missing earlier in the week in school. The entire class was searched, but they were never found. The boy who brought them to school was already on punishment because such devices were not allowed in school. Mrs. O was so sad to learn that her son had stolen the AirPods. She confronted him immediately, and all he had to say was that he was sorry and he just wanted to borrow them. Stealing. Very sore point with most of us as parents. I think most parents will definitely agree with me that if you ever catch your child stealing, or you hear that your child stole, it puts a kind of sad cloud over you, because you know that's a vice that nobody actually questions. But what is stealing? And how do you talk to children? How do you say to them properly to teach them what stealing is? So, first and foremost, stealing is taking anything that does not belong to you. If it is not yours and you take it without the person's permission, that is stealing. That's how to say it properly to your child, because it drives home the point that if it is not yours and you take it, it means you're stealing. Stealing is taking something from a shop without paying for it. It is not a 5-finger discount. We've heard that said before when teenagers say, "Oh, I just got a 5-finger discount," meaning that they took something from the store and it did not belong to them. But there's nothing like that. When you take something that does not belong to you without permission, or you take it without paying for it, it means you have stolen. I have one more thing. Do you realize that stealing is when you borrow and you do not return it? Yes, we need to teach our children that when you borrow something from somebody, you expected to return it to them. When you do not return it, it means that you have converted it to yours without their permission. It means you have stolen from them. It's hard for parents to deal with stealing because they all they want to do is at that time is you just want to hit the child, but that doesn't work. Hitting the child at that time or yelling and screaming is not going to stop the child from stealing. But when you break it down to the child and the child is able to understand that, when I take something without permission, when I take something from a store and I did not pay for it, or when I keep something that I borrowed from a friend, I have stolen, the child understands better. Sad point, but a real one. Most children will steal at some point in their lives. I'm sure if you check, maybe you stole once in your life too. And it could be as simple as taking a drink from the fridge without your parents' consent, or taking that piece of chicken or piece of meat from the pot. I know as soon as I said that, some of you realize that you have stolen before. That's stealing as well. You can't trivialize it, and you must own up to it in order to be able to teach your child that that is stealing. So, at some point or the other, most children would steal, but it's the correction that brings them back to the right point, and they're able to tell that that is not an attitude, it's not a habit, it's not something that they should carry on with in life. I'm still looking at this. I'm looking at imbibing these values very early in life is important. Don't wait until your child is older and say, oh, when they're teenagers, then I can start telling them that. No. From when a child is able to understand that this is mine, that is for somebody else, is a good time for you to teach them that stealing is when you take somebody else's property. We're going back to the issue of Mrs. O and Ogene now. So what is it? Ogene wanted AirPods. He probably had asked his parents for it, and they said no, for good reasons that he might have. But he felt the need to have the AirPods. And so it takes us to another point of saying, how do you talk to how do you communicate to your children that whatever I cannot afford to give to you, it means that you're not ready for it at that point. You then to tell your children that, if I have something, then I'll be able to share with you, or I can afford to give it to you. But when I say no, then it means that you do not need it at that point, or I do not feel the need for you to be in possession of it. It's not necessary for us to feel all the obligation, all the desires of our children, because nobody in life has everything. And that's another point we need to make to our children. To say you can wait to be able to get something. And when you wait for it, you might get to value it more. Saying it properly to your children is those things that I have already discussed right now. But we're going to be going on a short break. And when I get back, we'll do the wrap-up together. Thank you for staying with us. Remember, we're talking about stealing today. And like I said, you do not even understand how much impact, that has on children when they don't really understand what stealing is. And so in order to say it properly, one of the first things you need to do is what? To define the various forms of stealing to your child. You can't assume that the child understands what stealing is. And that's why we start at an early age. Letting them know that, taking something without permission is stealing. That's one. Telling them that when you go to the shop, if you don't pay for something and you sneak away with it, it means you have stolen. If you go into your sister's room, because many times we assume that because it's a family member, it's not stealing. But if you go into your sister's room and you take something without their permission, you can get used to doing that, so that when you go to school, you take somebody and say, oh, but that's my friend. No. So you must let them understand that even if it's mommy or daddy or your sisters, at the end of the day, what you need to do is to take permission. So that's one part of it. The other part is when you borrow stuff, let that child understand that borrowing means you're taking it for a period of time and that the plan is for you to return it. But when you borrow and you keep it, it means you have stolen. I'm sure many of us are thinking, wow, are there things I need to return right now? I'm thinking about a kettle that I have, a friend's kettle that I have in my house. She knows it's with me, but I'm like, I think I need to return that kettle because it's beginning to amount to stealing at this point. And if she's watching this, please, I'll bring your kettle back so that I won't be a thief. Okay? The other point now is, please do not label your child. Don't label your child and say this child is a thief, or tell your child you're a thief. Like we always say, the name you establish for that child is what that child is going to become. Because that child already thinks you've already put me in that cage, in that scope, and so that's what I am. So please do not call your child a thief. Do not label them a thief. Don't label that child. Putting a label on a child does not help. I remember that there was a time when I was in primary school and somebody has stolen something. And so the teacher thought the wise thing to do at that time was to have this boy stand up, and all of us were shouting thief, thief, and we're clapping. And she made us, do our fingers like that at him. That breaks a child. For the longest time, he didn't have friends in school. Nobody wanted to be with him. That in itself can ostracize your child into even a deeper level of those that kind of a habit. So please do not push your child into deeper into that vice or even other vices. Still talking about stealing. Check in with these children. They go to school, they come back with their backpacks. Look through. Even if it's a pencil that they bring home that you did not give them, question them. The child begins to establish the fact that, if I go home with this and my mom sees the yellow pencil and what she had given to me was a pink one, then she's going to ask me questions. Let the child know that whatever is not theirs that you find in their bag is going to be explained. And most times they have no explanation for it, and that you will follow up with an adult. The child will become more conscious about not taking that belongs to somebody else. Check with them. Are they in boarding school? Yes. So you have a child in boarding school and they come back with stuff and it's not there because they're trying to make up. Let me tell you this story. I remember that, when you go to boarding school and you lose some things, the last 2 days of that term, everybody is scrambling around to find whatever they can, because they don't want their parents to get mad at them. And so your child comes home with a shirt that has somebody else's name on it, or your child comes home and the spoon you gave is not the one, but they just want that completion. At the end of the day, it doesn't belong to them and you still have to replace it. So it's important that we just let our children know consistently that as long as it doesn't belong to you, it means that you have stolen it from somebody else. On the other hand too, let's leave room for them to be able to explain, because there are times that they really borrow things and they forget to return it. Let's not just label that child a thief immediately. You did not return it, it means you're a thief. I just spoke about a kettle that I took from a friend, and I know that she knows I'm not a thief and I did not steal it. But yes, I should have returned it by now. But because of circumstances, one thing or the other, I haven't. But I know that it does not belong to me. In the same way, give your child the opportunity to explain, and you can check back with the parents or with the teacher or an adult in authority. The other part we're going to look at is, what about punishment? Punishment. Yes, there are consequences, and our children, as they grow older, they need to know that there are consequences for actions in life. So after teaching your child repeatedly and showing them the path and saying stealing is a vice, that even the Holy Book says, do not steal, there has to be punishment. And there are different ways to punish a child other than just beating down them, because that might not even work. For instance, we'll go back to Ogene and Mrs. O. The first thing I'll tell Mrs. O is, number one, Ogene is not going to get any AirPods for maybe 6 months. So even if she could afford to buy it and she had planned to buy it for him, because he stole it from somebody else, she said, see, I have the money to buy the AirPods, but you're going to be denied the privilege of owning these AirPods because you did not wait to get it at the right time. So at times, deprivation is a way to teach our children not to steal if they have stolen already. But please do not go ahead and deprive your child of the necessities of life because you're trying to teach them not to steal, because the lesson can now go the other way around. So that's one point. The other point is too, a child has stolen. We know where he has stolen from. We know where it has come from. What do? You might as well just go and take that and say, you know what, you're going to return it. You're going to return it. And that can be hard for a child, but that makes them more conscious of taking what does not belong to them. He says, so these AirPods are going to go back to school, but Ogene, you're going to have the responsibility of handing it over to David, from whom you stole it to, and you apologize to him. That's really hard. But that's a lesson that Ogene would never forget. And guess what? Other people in the class might learn from that as well, because you never know who else is doing it anyway. So we have spoken about stealing today, and I've put points out there for you to be able to check with your children. Why do children steal for real? Many times it's because they want something that somebody else has. So check with your child. Listen to them. When it comes to the things that you can actually afford or things that they need in life, please do not deprive your children of those, so that the child doesn't steal out of necessity. But when it comes to the other things that you can't, or you have chosen not to give to your child yet, stick to your gun and make sure that your child understands. This is Say It Properly, and we're always here for us to learn together how to say it properly when it comes to different issues. Please remember to subscribe to Byronbee TV, and we'll see you next time as we say it properly on another issue. Thank you. Have you ever wondered if you handle the situation properly? I know I have. Well, you're welcome to SIP. Here, we say it properly. And we're looking forward to having you on each episode as we learn together how to say it properly. I am MABEL FOLUKE IRUKERA. See you then.